Hey everyone, welcome back to my channel. I'm Trudy, and if you're new, welcome. So in today's video, I'm just going to give you a cost breakdown of what it takes to move to China and settle here. Now I want you to bear in mind that the cost that you may incur may be dependent on several factors such as the route you're traveling and also the city that you may be moving to. But this video should give you a general overview of the post and pre-expenses. Let's get into the video. A little bit of story time before I delve into the video. Or is it really a story time? Anyways, that's besides the point. So moving to China kind of just happened to me. Yes, you heard right, it just kind of happened to me. I was never thinking down the line of teaching. I never even knew that you could be an ESL teacher without a teaching license. I didn't even know that there was a job such as an ESL teacher that existed. However, I saw a flyer one day. Actually, my friend showed me a flyer, and then, you know, it was advertising a teaching position in China. So I was like, quite interesting. The hours were great. The pay was good. I was like, okay, you know, I think something can happen here. So I applied for the job. I applied for the job like the Thursday, and then on the Friday, like, I got a response to my email, you know, inquiring about the job. And by Monday I had an interview, and then I was hired that same month. I only had a month and a week to basically prepare myself to move to China. Yeah, a month and a week. I had a month and a week to do the documentation process. I had a month and a week to say goodbye to my family. I had a month and a week to pack up my life and move to China. So it was very hectic. And I want to say that's the best approach to take when moving to a foreign country. It does take some planning and some thinking. And I really never thought about it, but I wouldn't say I regret it. I haven't regretted moving here. Now I'm just going to give you an overview of the expenses that are associated with moving to China, which basically I never knew. So let me shed some light for you. The pre-expenses, right? What it takes for you to get to China. So first on the list, you can't leave your country to work in China if you don't have a Z visa, right? Yes, so you need a Z visa. You can't get a Z visa if you don't have a passport. That's common sense, yeah? Yeah, so you need a passport. Okay, so whatever the cost of the passport in your country, if you never had one prior to applying, you need to get that. And then you need to ensure you do the documentation process before you can even think about getting the Z visa. So now, of course, there are prices that you will incur when taking care of your documents. So first of all, you need to procure a TEFL certificate. So I did my certificate online free, and then I paid like £50 to get it to Jamaica to me. So you have that to pay for to ensure that you get the documents authenticated and notarized within your country. So the fees that are associated with the documentation process is dependent on what your country would charge for those legalizations, right, or authentication. So you have a fee associated with getting the degree authenticated, getting the TEFL notarized, and you have to get a criminal record as well, so there's a fee associated with that. Of course, the next thing is that, all right, you get the Z visa, so now you need to come to China. So of course, you know, you have to book a plane ticket because one, we can't fly. Well, I can't fly, I don't know if you can. So the cost of the flight is obviously dependent on where you're coming from. So I flew from Jamaica through the US. I connected through the US to come to China. I actually flew to Hong Kong. I flew to Hong Kong and not directly to Shenzhen because I was told to take that route. The company picked me up over the border and drove me over to Shenzhen. So if you don't have a US visa or you're not living in the States, say you're a Jamaican and you're traveling to China, there are other routes that you can take, right? You can travel through Canada, which is basically in the same region as price region as the US. That's one. You can fly through Germany, and you can fly through Russia. Now Germany and Russia, of course, those are more expensive. It cost me approximately a little under $900 when I connected through the US. We'll talk about our documents, the flights. Of course, you're moving from your country to a foreign country. You're not really familiar with their foods, right? So of course you're gonna want to take a bit of food from home for comforting. So you have to purchase some miscellaneous items. So for me, I took seasoning because me is a foodie. I love my food and I love Jamaican food. I love the flavor of our food. So I take a lot of seasoning and spicing. Because grant you, in China, you're not gonna find the spices and the seasonings that are, you know, from your country. So that's one thing. Sometimes you wanna cook and you want to taste a bit of home. Well, for me at least, I like to taste a bit of Jamaica. The spices, those flavorings, you know. So I took seasonings with me. So that's one. Also, you know, as a female, I would recommend you to take some feminine products with you, because you might not find them. All right, really and truly, you're not gonna really find the brands that you're accustomed to, that you're used to back in your country. So I'd advise you to take some feminine products as well. I also took with me some medications, some over-the-counter. Oh, and if you're on prescription drugs, you want to stock up on that as well, because you might not find them in the pharmacies here. For sure, over-the-counters in Western countries, they're not here. You're gonna get Chinese drugs. Okay, so I took with me some painkillers like Advil and some Pepto-Bismol, cause listen, I know how my stomach was gonna react to the foods here, so I carried that with me as well. So that's really the pre-expenses. Yeah, visa, documentation process, flight, and some little nicks and knacks that would comfort you traveling to a foreign country. So yeah, now let's look at the post expenses, and this is where most of your money will go. Trust me, this can be quite hefty. So with coming to China, some companies, they will provide you with housing, that either give you a housing allowance or they will provide you with an apartment. Okay, normally when they're giving you the housing allowance, they don't give you like a deposit for your house. So they usually give you your housing allowance like a month after, when they're giving you your salary once you have arrived. So coming to China, first of all, you need somewhere to stay if it is that your company is not providing you with housing, right? And apartments in China can be very expensive, and of course it's all dependent on the city that you're living. I got lucky with my apartment, okay, and that's because I'm not in the bustling area of Shenzhen. I'm actually in Pingshan, where it's a bit more quiet. So I really got away. Apartments in Shenzhen, they're quite expensive, like double and triple what I am paying for, okay, and the space is not even as big as what I have, okay. So right, so apartment, if your school is not providing one for you, with the apartment here, you have to make 2 deposit plus a month's rent. So you want to have at least 15,000 renminbi when you're coming to China for housing, because if you're in a tier 1 city like Shenzhen, Shanghai, Beijing, very expensive. Like a 1-bedroom in like the city of Shenzhen will run you to about 5,000 RMB, 4,000, 5,000 in like Nanshan area or Futian. And it doesn't look 3/4 as good as what I am living in. And if you want to see my apartment, you know, you can just click the link and you can take a look at my apartment. So yeah, you want to ensure that you have enough cash for 2 months deposit plus the rent. So most apartments, they're furnished, so you don't have to worry about getting furniture. However, if you do want to, you know, get a cheaper apartment, or you prefer to decorate your place by yourself, you can rent a furnished apartment, okay? So you have that option as well. In 2018, I was actually sharing an apartment. I personally prefer my own space, so because you know how that can go when you're sharing with people. Like, I prefer my own space. So I actually opted for, after my experience in 2018, I opted for housing allowance. So my company will give me housing allowance instead of letting me live in the apartments that they have, right? So a lot of companies do give you that option, so that's good. Great, so now you have your apartment. You have your apartment, great. But what about plates? What about sheets? What about, you know, you need those things. You need to get housewares. So you need to spend on getting things for your apartment. You need to move around, right? So you will need money for transportation, and you also need money for food, because you gotta eat, yeah? Transportation in China is relatively inexpensive. There are many modes of transportation. There's the metro, there's Didi, which is like Uber, and there are taxis as well. You need maybe like 1,500, at least 1,500 for transportation and food for the month, and it's all dependent on your palate. I mean, you can get food for cheaper, if you want to eat Chinese food, local food is the cheapest. So I think 1,500 can more than suffice. I think so. So transportation is very cheap. 1,500 can more than do you. 1,500 RMB, I believe, is sufficient for food and transportation for the month. And as I said, everything is relative to city. Okay. Shenzhen, Beijing, Shanghai, tier 1 cities, expensive. Other cities that are second tier and third tier, those are cheaper. Long and short of this video, you need as much money as possible when you are migrating to another country, right? Anything can happen, especially when you're in China and you get employed here. These employers can just spit you out like that. You heard me. Spit you out, leave you in the cold. So in Jamaica we say, oh, get this money. You need to ensure that you have enough money in the event that something happens, you can jump on a flight and head back to your country. Because once you enter China, you have to do a medical, right? You have to do an exit and entry medical. I think that's what it's called. Yeah. And if there's anything that's wrong with you, you get, I think, like 5 to 7 days to get your stuff and head on out of China. So you have to have money in case that happens to you. That's one. Two, as I said, your employers can be evil and they can spit you out like that. They can just tell you, hey, we no longer want you. And your contract always protects them. It protects them more than you. So if that happens, you need to have money to move around and get what needs to be done to leave or transfer to another company. Okay, so really and truly, just like moving to any other country or just like moving to anywhere in the world, you need to ensure that you have, you know, sufficient amount of money when migrating. I would say roughly, say 15,000 for rent, 1,500 for food. In the event that you need to take a flight back home, should ensure that you have money for that. And you need houseware stuff, sheets, stuff like that. If you purchase them in the mall, it's more expensive than if you're supposed to purchase it on Taobao. So maybe have at least 25,000 to 30,000 RMB when coming to China. Yeah, at least that, if it is that your employers are not providing you with a house. And at the same time, they might give you something that you don't like and you want to move. So at least have 30,000 RMB, which is the equivalent to like 600,000 Jamaican dollars. Maybe at least 3,000 US dollars if you're moving here. I think that should be enough. 3,000 to 4,000 US dollars. Yeah, or maybe 5,000. But if you can afford it, bring as much money as possible. And you're gonna want to do some stuff in the meantime, you know, and you don't get paid until like the following month. So I mean, you're not gonna want to like just come to a country and just sit in your home all day every day. You want to go out and venture a bit. So as I said, bring as much as possible. So guys, please feel free to leave a comment below with any questions that you have pertaining to the post and pre-expenses of China that I might have not covered in this video. I definitely reach out to you and answer your questions. Until next time, thank you for watching. Goodbye.